So, here I am. Emily Carter, 19. First day on a military base I've dreamed about joining since I was 12. And, let me tell you, nothing could have prepared me for this. The first thing that hits you is the smell. Diesel, sweat, and gun oil all tangled together in a way that feels both suffocating and intoxicating. The second thing, the sound. Boots pounding concrete in perfect rhythm, yelling orders that slice through the morning fog like knives, and the low rumble of trucks rolling past. My heart raced, partly from excitement, partly from sheer terror. I swallowed hard and clutched my duffel bag as I walked through the main gate, trying to look like I belonged here. Spoiler, I did not. Almost immediately, the other soldiers noticed me. The stares were subtle at first, then sharp, cutting. "Well, look who's here," I heard someone mutter. "Tiny rookie alert." My stomach dropped and heat flooded my face. I was blushing before I even set foot in formation. I tightened my grip on my bag, trying to ignore the laughter that bounced off the walls. Rookie mistakes were expected, sure, but the subtle humiliation, they weren't shy about it. My first test came quicker than expected. The march runs. I'd imagined a soft introduction, maybe a few laps around the base, but no. We lined up in formation, legs trembling, boots polished, every officer staring us down like hawks. "Carter!" barked the sergeant. I jumped, almost dropping my water bottle. "Yes, Sergeant." My voice sounded small to my own ears. "Eyes forward! Move!" he commanded. And suddenly, we were running. Hard. My lungs burned within minutes, my legs screamed, and the other recruits? Some were falling behind, some were gliding like they'd been born for this. And me? I ran as fast as I could, forcing each step to match theirs, while the soldiers around me whispered, "Look at her struggle. She's not even keeping pace. Bet she's never touched a push-up in her life." I kept my head down, counting each step, each breath. I am not weak. I am not weak. I am not weak. The mantra repeated in my head like a drumbeat, pushing me forward even as my muscles threatened to give out. My pride? Shredded. My ego? Absolutely humiliated. But there was something else, deep under the shame. Determination. A stubborn fire that refused to die. Next came the drill exercises. Marching in formation, learning weapon handling, memorizing protocols. Again, every small mistake was noticed, exaggerated, and mocked. My rifle felt heavy in my hands, my uniform stiff and unfamiliar. One soldier leaned close during inspection and smirked. "Careful there, princess. Don't break anything too expensive." My blood boiled, but I smiled politely. I knew if I reacted, I'd give them exactly what they wanted. A flash of shame, a crack in my armor. Lunch was no reprieve. I sat quietly, trying to eat while they exchanged stories, jokes, and subtle jabs at me. "So, Carter," one asked, loud enough for me to hear, "do they let you play with dolls in basic or just here in the chow hall?" A few others snickered. I felt my stomach twist, but I focused on my food, chewing slowly, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. By the afternoon, we were back to drills. Push-ups until my arms shook, sit-ups until my core screamed, and obstacle courses that left me gasping. And all the while, the whispers and laughter followed me like a shadow. At one point, I stumbled over a low wall, scraping my knee, and I heard someone mutter, "Guess she really isn't cut out for this." My cheeks burned again, but I forced myself to get up without complaint, brushing the dirt off my uniform and continuing as if nothing happened. Here's the thing. I wasn't helpless. Not at all. I could run. I could fight. I could endure. But they didn't know that yet. And I needed them to think I was just another rookie. Awkward. Inexperienced. Maybe even fragile. Let them underestimate me. Let them think this was all they needed to see. Because appearances can be deceiving. I knew that if I showed my full ability now, it would ruin the experiment I had planned for later. For now, I had to survive, to endure, to learn every face, every weakness, every joke, every whispered insult. By the end of the day, my body was screaming, soaked with sweat, dirt smeared on my uniform, pride tattered but not broken. I could barely lift my rifle, barely lift my arms, but there was a spark inside me, quiet, steady, relentless. They thought they could humiliate me, make me small, define me by first impressions. Let them think what they wanted. Emily Carter, I don't quit. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. As I lay in my bunk that night, staring at the ceiling, I replayed every whispered insult, every snicker, every glance of doubt. And you know what? I smiled. Not because I was happy, they'd made me miserable, but because they had no idea what was coming. They thought today had tested me. No, today had only introduced me. Tomorrow, the real challenge would begin, and I would be ready. So, day 2 hit me like a freight train, and I quickly realized that rookie trials were not a cute nickname. They were literal hell. The morning started with the wake-up whistle at 0500. I swear, nothing wakes you up faster than the blaring of a whistle while your body is still half in sleep. Groggy, stiff, and already sore from yesterday, I stumbled into formation with the other recruits. My uniform clung uncomfortably to my skin, and I could practically feel the eyes of the platoon sizing me up again. The sergeant wasted no time. "Today, we separate the weak from the strong," he barked. I blinked. Seriously? Did he have a personal vendetta against rookies, or was this standard procedure? Either way, there was no turning back. The first exercise was a series of timed obstacle courses, rope climbs, wall jumps, crawling through mud pits. I kept my eyes on the goal and focused on every movement, but as expected, my teammates whispered behind me. "She's going to fall, for sure," someone muttered when I approached the rope climb. I heard the barely suppressed laughter and felt my stomach knot, but I ignored it, counting my hand-over-hand movements like I always do. Halfway through, disaster struck. Or so it looked. My foot slipped on the muddy ramp leading up to the climbing wall. For a heartbeat, I panicked. Arms flailing, I felt myself sliding back. "Ah! Careful, rookie!" someone shouted mockingly. But I didn't fall. I caught myself on the rope and hoisted up, muscles screaming in protest. The surprise on their faces was delicious, even if no one said anything out loud. After the obstacle course, we were thrown into weapons training. The instructors were relentless. "Your weapon is an extension of yourself. Treat it with respect, or you'll be a liability." I followed their instructions meticulously, every stance, every movement precise. But naturally, the whispers started again. "Look at her. Overcompensating much?" one soldier said. Another chuckled. "Bet she's gonna drop it in the field." I felt a pang of anger, hot and sudden, but I let it slide. My calm had a purpose. Anger would only give them satisfaction. Next came marching drills. This time, the goal was endurance. Step after step, hour after hour, every misstep scrutinized. My boots rubbed blisters into my feet, my legs trembled, but I kept my head high. One guy, always itching to embarrass me, whispered, "Keep up, princess. Don't hurt yourself." I heard the snickers ripple through the platoon. And yes, it stung. Every word, every laugh felt like a jab to the ribs. But beneath it, a quiet pride blossomed. I was still standing, still moving, still not broken. By midday, we were assigned paired exercises designed to test coordination and trust. Naturally, I got partnered with the guy who seemed to despise me most. His smirk was infuriating. "Don't get in my way," he muttered. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. He tried to throw me off balance, nudging, blocking, even whispering more insults. I reacted minimally, using his momentum against him when necessary, and quietly completing every task we were given. By the end, His jaw was tight, eyes wide, a little color draining from his face. Surprise? Maybe. Realizing he underestimated me? Absolutely. Lunchtime was another mental battlefield. I sat alone, quietly observing. The group whispered behind their hands, probably trying to guess what kind of rookie I was. They thought they had me figured out, but I was collecting intel. Who could be relied on in a real mission? Who would crack under pressure? Who thrived on drama? Every laugh, every jab, every accidental shove. They revealed more than they realized. The afternoon brought more physical training, this time running laps in full gear under the scorching sun. The heat was brutal. My lungs burned, sweat poured into my eyes, but I refused to slow down. And of course, the usual comments came. Why even bother? She's never going to make it. Looks like the princess is melting. A few more snickers, some outright laughter. Each one hit, sure. But with every lap I ran, with every bead of sweat I wiped from my face, I reminded myself, I am stronger than this. Stronger than their assumptions. By the end of the day, my body was screaming, my uniform soaked through with sweat, dirt and mud smeared across every surface, and my pride battered. But here's the kicker. I survived. Not only that, but I had quietly begun to notice patterns. Who laughed too loud, who hid behind sarcasm, who actually worked silently and efficiently. Knowledge is power, and I was collecting it like a silent predator. As I lay in my bunk that night, legs aching, back sore, pride bruised, I thought about all the whispers and laughs. They tried to humiliate me, to make me small, to reduce me to a stereotype, the weak, clumsy rookie. But they didn't know me. They didn't know what I was capable of. And they wouldn't. Not yet. Because Emily Carter doesn't quit, doesn't crumble, doesn't fold. Not now, not ever. Tomorrow the trials would continue, and I would be ready. I wasn't just here to survive. I was here to observe, to learn, to bide my time. And when the moment came, I would show them exactly who Emily Carter really was. By the time day 3 rolled around, I was starting to feel the rhythm of the bass, or at least a version of it that didn't make me want to curl into a ball in the corner. My body still ached from the previous 2 days, but I noticed something subtle. My movements were smoother, my timing more precise, and I wasn't tripping over every obstacle in sight. Not that the soldiers noticed immediately. They were still whispering, still snickering, still clearly convinced that I was the weak link in the chain. The morning started with another timed obstacle course. Rope climbs, wall jumps, mud crawls, you name it. I approached it like a game, but not just any game. A chess game where every glance, every whispered insult, was a piece moving on the board. My mind calculated each step, each hand placement, and my body followed through. When my foot slipped on the rope climb, I caught myself mid-fall, swung over the wall, and landed lightly on the other side. I swear I could feel the shock radiating from the guys who had been ready to laugh at me. Weapons training came next. I had always been precise with my hands, careful, deliberate, and today that precision started paying off. While others fumbled with the unfamiliar gear, I moved like I'd done this 100 times. Officers started taking notice, not the soldiers, not yet, but the ones in charge of grading our performance. One of the instructors called out my name. Carter, good form, keep it up. My heart skipped a beat. Just a small comment, barely audible over the chatter, but it was enough to make the whispers of mockery sting less. Lunch was still tense. The group tried their usual subtle jabs, but I noticed fewer whispers behind my back and a little more cautious observation. They were beginning to realize that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the hopeless rookie they assumed. I caught a couple of glances of surprise when I completed a mental drill exercise faster than my partner. Nothing said aloud, just looks that lingered a second too long. I smiled, quietly, to myself. Knowledge is power, and today I was collecting it silently. The afternoon was focused on endurance, Long marches with full gear, pushing our limits physically and mentally. My legs ached, lungs burned, sweat stung my eyes, but I kept moving. And here's the thing. Every time someone tried to rush past me or push me aside, I didn't flinch. I maintained my pace, my composure, and gradually, the mocking whispers started to taper off. Not completely, but enough that I could feel a subtle shift in the energy around me. They were beginning to measure me differently. Then came the first small victory. During a paired exercise, my partner, notorious for constantly belittling me, dropped the ball. Literally. He fumbled the coordination drill, and I recovered with smooth precision, completing the task flawlessly. The surprise on his face was priceless. How did you? He stammered, trying to mask his embarrassment. I simply nodded and moved on, neutral expression intact, letting my actions speak louder than words. Inside, though, I was smiling, quietly, deliberately. The rest of the day passed in a blur of physical and mental challenges, each one an opportunity to prove, silently, that I wasn't just a weak rookie. And by the end, the first real acknowledgement came, not from the soldiers, still stubbornly skeptical, but from the officers. One of them pulled me aside during inspection. "Carter, you're improving quickly. Keep this pace, and you'll be a solid asset." That small recognition was like a lifeline, a confirmation that the effort, the humiliation, the whispers were all worth it. That night, lying on my bunk with the ache of fatigue pressing into every muscle, I reflected on the day. Yes, the soldiers still whispered and mocked. Yes, the base was still intimidating. But I had something they didn't: control over my reactions, awareness of my own strengths, and a plan. Every step I took, every drill I completed, every insult I endured, it was all preparation. Preparation for the moment when they would see the real me, and that moment would shock them. I had survived the first true trial, and not only survived, I had started to thrive. For the first time, I felt a flicker of respect. Not theirs, not yet, but mine. Respect for what I could endure, what I could accomplish, and what I could keep hidden. Emily Carter wasn't the rookie they thought she was. She was something more, something they had yet to discover. And honestly, I was excited, because the best part of this whole journey wasn't just surviving. It was the moment when they would realize that their assumptions were dead wrong. That moment would come. And when it did, it would be unforgettable. I thought by day 4 I had a rhythm, that I was starting to carve out a space for myself on this base, small as it might be. I was wrong. Because that's when it happened. The moment that reminded me that no matter how prepared you think you are, life has a way of humbling you. The morning started like any other. Wake-up whistle, groggy formation, boots snapping against concrete, and the usual parade of whispers behind my back. I could almost hear them. "Watch this one fall apart today. She thinks she's getting better. Bet she quits before lunch." My cheeks flushed. Not from shame this time, but irritation. Yes, I was aware I was still a rookie in their eyes, but I was learning. I was improving. And nothing was going to stop me. The training that morning was a march over uneven terrain, designed to test our endurance and coordination while carrying full packs. Hills, mud, rocks, everything in the plan to push us to exhaustion. My legs were already sore from the past 3 days, but I kept pace, each step deliberate. I focused on my breathing, on keeping my shoulders square, on moving with precision. Halfway through the march, disaster struck. I misjudged a step over a slick patch of mud, and my ankle twisted sharply beneath me. Pain shot through my leg like fire. I stumbled, barely catching myself on a tree trunk before I fell completely. The soldiers around me froze for a split second, and then the whispers started immediately. "Finally! I knew she'd break. She can't even walk properly. Guess Princess isn't so tough after all." I gritted my teeth, ignoring the voices, and tried to continue. But the pain was immediate, intense, and unrelenting. I realized quickly I wouldn't make it to the end of the march without help. One of the sergeants approached, his face a mix of concern and suspicion. "Carter, you good?" he asked. I shook my head, trying to mask the agony in my face. They escorted me to the infirmary, and that's when the humiliation really hit. The nurses fussed over my ankle, wrapping it in a brace while I tried to stay composed. But the whispers followed me even here. I could hear a group of soldiers outside the curtain, muttering, "She's done. That's it. Just another weak recruit." It burned, not just physically, but deep in my pride. I wanted to yell, to show them that a sprain wasn't the end of me. As I lay on the cot, I felt a swirl of emotions I hadn't expected. Frustration, embarrassment, anger, and a creeping sense of vulnerability. I had trained so hard, endured so much, and here I was, sidelined by a simple twist of the ankle. My mind raced, remembering every whisper, every snicker. The humiliation stung, but beneath it, a calm determination started to form. I refused to let this break me. Not emotionally, not mentally. While I was temporarily excused from physical training, the real challenge began. Observing the soldiers in my absence. From the corner of the infirmary, I watched them interact, noticing who took the lead, who floundered without guidance, and who was quick to mock others. The whispers about me continued, but now I was seeing patterns, learning about morale, weaknesses, and hidden strengths. My accident, though physically limiting, became an opportunity to study, to learn, to plan. By the afternoon, my frustration had transformed into quiet focus. I could no longer run laps or climb walls, but I could watch, analyze, and strategize. The soldiers thought my temporary injury meant I was weak. They didn't see the truth. Strength isn't only measured in physical feats. Mental resilience, patience, observation. These were my weapons now. And they had no idea I was about to wield them. That night, lying on the infirmary cot, I reflected on the day. Pain radiated from my ankle, but my mind felt sharper than ever. The soldiers' mockery could no longer touch me. I was seeing past it. Every whisper, every sneer, was a clue to how I could turn the tables later. I wasn't defeated. I wasn't broken. I was adapting. And the fire inside me, the stubborn determination that had carried me through the first 3 days, burned even brighter. Emily Carter doesn't quit. She endures. She observes. And when the moment is right, she strikes. This injury? Just another test. And I was more than ready to pass it. Coming back after my ankle injury felt different. The first days on a new platoon weren't about proving myself physically. They were about blending in. I had been sent to this unit under the guise of a normal recruit, supposedly fresh out of basic training, and the goal was simple. Observe. Test the morale, the discipline, and the integrity of these soldiers without revealing anything about myself. Easy? Not at all. But that's never been my style. From the moment I stepped into the barracks, I could feel their eyes sizing me up. Though not the same way as before. I was quieter this time, moving slower, deliberately fumbling small tasks, letting my uniform hang slightly off my shoulders, acting just a little unsure of my footing. They had no idea that beneath the hesitant posture and the careful clumsiness was someone who had endured 3 brutal days of rookie trials and learned every trick in the book. "Hey, new girl," one of the soldiers said as I tried to line up for inspection, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Don't trip over your own boots." The others laughed, of course. I forced a soft smile, nodded, and adjusted my stance. That small acknowledgement, that slight grin. It didn't give them anything. But inside, I was cataloging. Who was cruel? Who laughed without thinking? Who mocked out of habit versus strategy? Every reaction mattered. Every glance, every comment, every whispered insult was data. Training started, and I played the part of the inexperienced recruit perfectly. I ran slower than necessary, dropped small tools, asked obvious questions, even fumbled with the weapon drills. I could feel some of the soldiers growing impatient with me. "Seriously? What are you even doing?" One barked during a drill. Another laughed, shaking his head. "I've seen toddlers handle that better." Every comment stung only slightly, just enough to make me believable. But I smiled through it, keeping my calm exterior intact. What surprised me most was how revealing this platoon's behavior was. Some soldiers immediately took on leadership roles, covering my mistakes without hesitation, guiding me quietly without seeking recognition. Others hesitated, glancing nervously at peers, unwilling to take responsibility or risk embarrassment. And some, well, they thrived on humiliation, trying to push me further than my disguised limits, testing me as if I were truly weak. I wrote every detail down in my mind, storing it like a tactical map of human behavior. The field exercises were even more telling. During a simulated combat scenario, I intentionally lagged behind, creating gaps in the formation. The soldiers' reactions were instantaneous. Some yelled to cover the gap, others cursed under their breath and let the problem slide. I noted every hesitation, every instinctive move. Observing without interfering was harder than I expected. Every muscle in me itched to prove I could handle it flawlessly. But patience was the key. Show too much, and I would blow my cover. Meals, downtime, and bunk arrangements offered a different kind of observation. Small conversations, jokes, whispered complaints. People revealed themselves when they thought no one important was listening. One soldier bragged loudly about breaking rookies and how easy it was to control morale, completely unaware of the eyes tracking him. Another quietly defended a timid recruit who had been mocked. I smiled inwardly. These were the patterns I was looking for, the seeds of leadership, discipline, and weakness. By the end of the first week in the new platoon, I had gathered more information than I could have imagined. I knew who was reliable under stress, who panicked at small mistakes, and who had the charisma to keep others motivated. They all thought I was just a clumsy, timid rookie. They had no idea I wasn't merely observing. I was testing them. I was measuring the strength and cohesion of this unit, and they were passing or failing without even knowing it. That night, alone in my bunk, I allowed myself a small smile. My ankle had healed enough to walk without pain, my disguise had held, and my patience had remained intact. This wasn't about proving myself yet. That part was coming. Soon, the real Emily Carter, the one who had endured the first trials and survived, would emerge. And when she did, the soldiers would see that the quiet, awkward rookie they thought they could mock was someone far stronger, far smarter, and far more capable than they ever imagined. And for now, I had learned something important. Sometimes, the strongest moves are the ones you make while pretending to be weak. By now, I had settled into the rhythm of my new platoon, but I knew that staying invisible would require constant effort. I had to make small mistakes, move a little slower than necessary, act just awkward enough to appear ordinary, all while watching the soldiers closely. Every glance, every muttered insult, every glance of frustration. They were like pieces of a puzzle, and I was determined to fit them together perfectly. Morning drills were always the hardest. The sergeant barked orders as if the world would end if we faltered, and I played the part of the hesitant rookie flawlessly. I fumbled my gear, adjusted my uniform awkwardly, and even dropped my rifle once. Carefully timed, of course. The reaction was immediate. "Seriously? Watch your hands, rookie," one soldier snapped. Another chuckled. "Is this your first day? Thought you'd know better by now." I forced a sheepish smile, pretending to shrink under their scrutiny. Internally, I was taking notes. Who laughed the loudest? Who corrected me without hesitation? Who mocked silently? Even the soldiers who tried to act superior revealed themselves. Leadership isn't just about giving orders. It's about how people respond when others are weak. And this platoon, I realized, was full of lessons waiting to be uncovered. Field exercises were even more revealing. During a simulated ambush, I intentionally lagged, letting the others advance ahead of me. My mistakes created gaps in their formation, and their reactions were instantaneous. One soldier cursed under his breath, visibly frustrated, while another took command, repositioning others to cover the opening. It was fascinating. Some rose to the occasion naturally, others floundered. And all the while, I stayed calm, pretending to struggle with the terrain, pretending to be the rookie they expected. Observation wasn't limited to training. Meals, downtime, even the barracks offered insights into morale and personality. I noticed who dominated conversations, who whispered judgments, who consoled others quietly. One soldier bragged loudly about humiliating recruits, clearly proud of his perceived superiority. Another quietly offered guidance to a struggling teammate, earning no attention for it. I smiled inwardly. The obvious leaders often weren't the loudest. They were the ones who could lift morale without seeking recognition. Small, subtle tests became my favorite part of the day. I deliberately dropped a water canteen, tripped over a low obstacle, or fumbled with my gear. I watched carefully to see who stepped up to help, who made fun, and who ignored the situation entirely. The reactions were telling. Some tried to humiliate me further, clearly thinking they had the upper hand. Others offered guidance, silently correcting my mistakes while keeping me calm. Every move, every reaction added to my mental map of this platoon. Despite my disguise, I felt the occasional spark of pride. Even while pretending to be less competent than I was learning more than I had in weeks of basic training. I realized that true strength isn't always about physical prowess. It's about observation, patience, and knowing when to act. And this platoon? They were a goldmine of information, revealing both their strengths and weaknesses without realizing it. By the end of the day, exhaustion settled into my bones. My muscles ached, my uniform was dirt-streaked, and my pride had been carefully restrained to maintain the illusion of mediocrity. But my mind was sharp, buzzing with the collected intel. I knew who could be relied upon in a crisis, who would crumble under pressure, and who had the quiet discipline that could inspire others. The soldiers thought I was just another rookie struggling to survive. They had no idea I was testing them as much as they were testing me. That night, in the dim light of the bunk, I reflected on the day. Patience had become my weapon, observation my shield. Every subtle mistake, every small stumble had revealed more than a week of direct confrontation ever could. I smiled quietly, imagining the moment when they would finally see the truth. Not the timid rookie they had dismissed, but Emily Carter, disciplined, experienced, and in control. And I knew that day would come. Soon. By the start of the week, it was clear. This platoon had no idea what was coming. They still saw me as a timid, slightly clumsy rookie, the perfect cover. But the instructors had planned a full-field tactical exercise, and I knew this would be the ultimate test. For them, for me, and for the mask I had been wearing. The morning started before dawn. Fog rolled across the training ground, softening the edges of the trees and turning the terrain into a maze of shadows. We were briefed quickly. Simulated ambushes, capture the flag objectives, and survival scenarios designed to push every recruit to the edge. The soldiers were tense. You could feel it in the tight lines of their shoulders, the quick glances, the hushed, ready whispers. I, of course, acted unsure, fidgeting with my boots, adjusting my backpack awkwardly, and checking my rifle repeatedly like a rookie who hadn't slept in days. We moved out in formation, and within minutes, chaos erupted. A sudden enemy attack, simulated, of course, hit the platoon from the left flank. Soldiers shouted, tripped, and scrambled, and my disguise forced me to stumble just enough to make the panic feel real. The reactions were immediate. Some froze, unsure where to go or what to do. Others barked orders, trying to recover lost ground. I noted everything: the hesitation, the assertiveness, the willingness to step up or step aside. A soldier near me, the one who had mocked me relentlessly, panicked slightly. "Carter, watch your flank," he barked. I hesitated, pretending to be unsure, and he cursed under his breath. Another soldier jumped in to cover the gap, redirecting others to safety. It was a perfect illustration of what I had been studying. Who could handle pressure, who folded, and who instinctively led. Midway through the exercise, a sudden explosion went off near the command post, throwing dirt and debris into the air. Shouts echoed, boots pounded, and I faked a stumble, just enough to make my panic seem real. The others reacted instantly. Some took protective positions, some shouted orders, and a few simply froze, unsure how to respond. I could feel the soldiers' attention on me, but instead of faltering, I kept my calm exterior. My heart raced, but my voice remained steady as I called out corrections to my partner. Inside, I was exhilarated. This was what I had trained for, not physically, but mentally. Observation under pressure. By the afternoon, the scenario intensified. Terrain became more treacherous, communication lines cut, and a timed objective forced the platoon to move quickly. My disguised stumbles continued, dropping maps, fumbling radios, making small errors, but always in ways that drew out reactions rather than ruin the mission. One soldier almost lost his patience entirely, glaring at me. "I don't know why they put you here. You're slowing us down." Another calmly redirected the team, making up for the errors without losing composure. The contrast was fascinating, and I mentally cataloged each response. Then came the final push. A coordinated assault on the enemy base. Soldiers had to move quickly, maintain stealth, and secure objectives under time pressure. My mistakes, slow steps, misplaced cover, fumbling gear, continued to test them. Some grumbled, some shouted, some covered instinctively. The instructors watched silently, taking notes, and I realized the effectiveness of my disguise. They truly didn't know I was assessing them just as much as they were assessing me. By the end, the exercise was complete. Platoon formation restored, sweat and dirt covering everyone, and instructors calling out observations. The soldiers were exhausted, frustrated, and in some cases, humbled. I, of course, remained calm, wiping dirt from my uniform, pretending to be drained. And yet, internally, I was thrilled. Every reaction I had studied, every instinctive move under pressure had been recorded. They had been tested, and I had learned who was dependable, who could inspire others, and who fell apart at the first sign of chaos. That night, lying in the bunk, muscles sore, gear spread across the floor, I reflected on the day. The platoon had no idea that the timid rookie they thought they could mock had been quietly testing them every step of the way. And I had discovered more than I could have imagined, not just about the platoon's abilities, but about human behavior under stress. Fear, pride, hesitation, courage, it all came to the surface in moments of crisis. And I knew something crucial. The real Emily Carter wasn't done yet. The disguised rookie had done her job perfectly, but the next steps, the reveal, the consequences, the respect, were approaching. And when the time came, the soldiers would be shocked, absolutely shocked. By now, the platoon thought they knew me. The clumsy rookie, slow, uncertain, always trailing just behind. I had played the role so convincingly that even the instructors nodded approvingly at my progress. They had no idea what was coming, or who I really was. The day began with a field exercise designed to test endurance and coordination under simulated combat conditions. Thick fog hung low over the training ground, dampening the sounds of boots and whispered commands. I moved deliberately slower than necessary, fumbling my rifle slightly, letting my pack shift awkwardly on my shoulders and adjusting my gloves as if unsure. The soldiers whispered, "She's holding us back again," one muttered. Another laughed. "Is this rookie ever going to catch up?" I smiled quietly to myself. They had no idea that the real Emily Carter was waiting, biding her time, watching, observing, planning. The exercise became chaotic quickly. Simulated enemy fire, smoke grenades, and timed objectives created perfect stress conditions. The platoon had to adapt or fail. I intentionally dropped a map while crawling through the underbrush, fumbled a compass, and stumbled over roots. Predictably, some soldiers barked in frustration, some cursed under their breath, and a few quietly compensated for my errors. I cataloged every reaction, every instinctive move, storing them for later. Then came the final stage, securing the objective. The platoon moved as a team, clearing zones and reporting positions. I noticed one soldier struggling under pressure, panicking slightly as he tried to guide another team member. My small, intentional mistake, a delayed cover move, triggered a cascade of reactions. I could see the frustration, the tension, and the determination all at once. But this was it. The moment had arrived. I moved to the edge of the zone and paused. The others were focused on the objective, completely unaware of me. With a deliberate motion, I shrugged off my jacket and rolled up the sleeve of my uniform. The sun caught the skin beneath, revealing the tattoo on my shoulder. An eagle with wings fully outstretched, sharp talons extended, eyes fierce, an emblem of an elite unit. The reaction was immediate and electric. Conversation halted mid-word. Boots froze on the ground. Eyes widened, jaws dropped. The soldier who had mocked me the most stumbled backward slightly, disbelief written across his face. "Wait, that's—" he started, but couldn't finish. The rest of the platoon turned toward me, shocked silence filling the clearing. I kept my expression calm, neutral, almost bored, but inside I was exhilarated. The tattoo wasn't just ink. It was a symbol of training, discipline, and a history they didn't know I carried. Every whispered insult, every shove, every sarcastic comment, they thought they had me pegged. And now, they realized they had underestimated me, completely. The instructor approached cautiously, scanning the emblem with recognition. "Carter," he said, voice low, a mix of respect and surprise. I nodded once, silently acknowledging that the disguise had served its purpose. The platoon now saw the rookie they had mocked as something entirely different. Disciplined, experienced, and formidable. Their whispers turned into stunned murmurs. The soldier who had taunted me the most finally found his voice, faltering. "I didn't know." His eyes darted between me and the tattoo, unable to reconcile the timid rookie with the elite symbol etched on my skin. Others were quiet, some ashamed, some impressed, all surprised. Inside, I felt a surge of vindication, but it was tempered by control. This was not a moment for gloating. My goal had always been to test the platoon, observe their reactions, and ensure that their morale and discipline were intact. Now that the truth was visible, I could see exactly who reacted with respect, who was intimidated, and who still struggled to adjust their assumptions. The exercise continued, but everything had changed. Their movements were more cautious, their commands more measured. I could see the recalibration in real time, the recognition that appearances could be deceiving, that strength was not always obvious, and that the rookie they had mocked could dominate not just in skill, but in strategy and presence. That night, in the bunk, I reflected on the day with a quiet sense of satisfaction. The disguise had worked perfectly. I had observed, learned, and finally revealed a piece of myself at exactly the right moment. The soldiers had been shocked, humiliated in the sense that they had misjudged me, but also enlightened. They now knew that discipline, patience, and careful observation could reveal strengths far beyond appearances. And I knew the next steps would be even more impactful. The platoon had been tested, and now they understood that Emily Carter was far more than a rookie. They had just glimpsed the force beneath the surface. By the time the dust from the tactical exercise settled, the platoon was already buzzing with whispers. Some couldn't believe what they had just seen. The eagle tattoo, the precise movements, the quiet confidence hidden beneath a rookie facade. But they still didn't know the full story. They didn't know who Emily Carter really was, or the legacy she carried. That revelation would come next, and when it did, it would change everything. It happened during the debrief. We were gathered in formation, dirt-streaked, sweat-soaked, and exhausted. The instructors were going over performance, pointing out mistakes, highlighting strong points, and giving guidance. As they spoke, I stayed in my place, calm, neutral, maintaining the appearance of the rookie who had survived her first week in this new platoon. One of the officers, a tall, sharp-eyed man, paused as his gaze swept over me. "Carter," he said slowly, tone clipped but curious. "Step forward." My heart remained steady, my expression calm. I obeyed, moving to the front. I could feel the platoon's eyes on me, some skeptical, some wary, some still trying to reconcile what they thought they knew with what they had seen. "Your performance today," the officer continued, "was unexpectedly competent." He hesitated, then nodded toward my shoulder. "The tattoo. That emblem isn't just decorative. It belongs to an elite unit, a prestigious lineage of aviators, if I'm not mistaken." He glanced at the other instructors, and there was a flicker of recognition, surprise, respect, even awe. I kept my expression calm, letting the moment stretch. Then, deliberately, I spoke. My voice was steady, clear, confident. "Yes, the eagle is the emblem of my unit. And more than that." I paused, letting the weight of the words settle, watching the reactions carefully. "I'm the daughter of a legendary pilot. My family has served in elite aviation units for generations. This isn't something I hide lightly. It's a legacy I carry, not just for honor, but for discipline, for skill, and for resilience." The silence that followed was electric. The soldiers, previously mocking and skeptical, froze. Mouths opened, closed, eyes widened. The one who had been the harshest toward me couldn't find words. "Wait, you're—" He stopped, unable to complete the sentence. A few others exchanged glances, faces pale, some with embarrassment, some with admiration. I let the silence stretch a moment longer, feeling the weight of control and respect settle in the air. "You judged me as a rookie," I continued, deliberately calm. "And that was your mistake. My purpose here wasn't just to follow orders, but to observe, to test morale and discipline, and to ensure that this platoon could handle stress, chaos, and uncertainty. You all passed or failed based on your actions, not assumptions." The platoon shifted, murmurs rippling through the formation. The same soldiers who had whispered insults, snickered, and mocked my every move now looked at me differently. Fear? Respect? Maybe both. The instructor nodded at me, silently acknowledging that I had achieved exactly what I intended. "What does this mean for us?" one soldier finally asked, voice hesitant. I tilted my head slightly, letting the weight of my gaze meet theirs. "It means appearances are deceiving," I said softly but firmly. "Strength isn't always obvious. Discipline isn't always loud. And true leadership sometimes comes from the quietest, least expected places." There was a pause, a collective inhale, as comprehension slowly dawned. They had underestimated me at every turn, and now they understood just how thoroughly they had misjudged me. The whispers of mockery were gone. In their place were looks of cautious respect, tempered by the shock of realization. That night, alone in the bunk, I reflected on the day. The mask of the rookie had worked perfectly. I had observed, tested, and learned, and now the revelation of my lineage and training had recalibrated the entire platoon's perception. They would no longer see me as weak, clumsy, or inexperienced. They would see me for what I was: disciplined, capable, strategic, and strong. And I knew something else. This was only the beginning. The respect I had earned, the knowledge I had gathered about each soldier's behavior under pressure, would serve me and the platoon long after this exercise was over. For the first time, I allowed a small, private smile. Emily Carter had been underestimated, mocked, and tested, but she had emerged victorious. The platoon knew now. Strength is not measured by appearances, and the quietest soldiers often wield the most power. After the reveal, the energy on the base shifted almost immediately. It was subtle at first. Fewer whispered comments behind my back, more careful glances, slight nods of acknowledgement. But it didn't take long for the transformation to become obvious. The same soldiers who had mocked me relentlessly, the ones who had whispered about my supposed weakness, now looked at me with something approaching respect, mixed with disbelief. Training the next day was different. No one tried to trip me or make cutting remarks. Orders were quieter, movements more precise. I noticed soldiers pausing before criticizing, measuring their words. Some hesitated entirely, unsure whether to act casually or defer to my judgment. And honestly, I loved every second of it. Not the arrogance, not the gloating, but the quiet satisfaction of watching them realize that the rookie they thought they could humiliate was, in fact, someone they could trust with their lives. The morning started with physical drills, but this time I moved without restraint. Every movement precise, calculated, yet smooth and effortless. I could feel the soldiers observing my posture, my handling of the equipment, the way I carried my rifle. There was a new respect in their eyes. One of the men, who had been especially harsh before, approached quietly. "Carter," he said, voice low, hesitant. You're really something." I simply nodded, keeping my expression neutral, letting my actions speak louder than words. Lunch offered a different kind of insight. The atmosphere was lighter, but charged with acknowledgement. The soldiers discussed strategies, sharing observations openly, seeking input from me. I realized that the mockery had transformed into trust. Even the ones who had doubted me were now looking to me for guidance. I remained calm, measured in my responses, giving only enough to guide without dominating. It was a delicate balance, but it reinforced a simple truth. Respect is earned quietly, not demanded loudly. Afternoon field exercises were where it truly hit. Tasks were more complex, requiring coordination, communication, and trust. I saw the subtle changes instantly. Soldiers stepped up instinctively, anticipating my movements, adjusting for errors before they happened, and covering gaps without hesitation. The ones who had faltered in the earlier exercises now displayed initiative. They had learned, adapted, and in the process, proved themselves worthy of trust. And in the quiet corners of my mind, I felt a surge of pride, not in power, but in strategy, in seeing the unit transform before my eyes. By the evening, even the officers acknowledged the shift. During debrief, the sergeant's usual stern tone softened slightly. "Carter," he said, pausing as he looked over the platoon, "your actions today and your leadership have made a difference. The unit is stronger because of you." My chest swelled with quiet satisfaction, not pride in the way that demands recognition, but pride in knowing I had fulfilled my purpose. The respect was mutual now, unspoken but unmistakable. Back in the bunk that night, I reflected on the journey. I thought about the first days, the whispers, the mockery, the subtle attempts to humiliate me. I remembered my ankle injury, the deliberate mistakes, the careful observation of this platoon's strengths and weaknesses. And now, everything had changed. The soldiers who once mocked me now admired me, not for a flashy display or sudden show of force, but for perseverance, discipline, and composure under pressure. I realized that appearances are deceiving. True strength often hides beneath the surface, revealed only when patience, observation, and experience intersect. I had tested the platoon, I had tested myself, and in the process, I had changed the dynamic entirely. The respect I had earned wasn't just personal, it had elevated the entire unit. Morale had strengthened, Discipline had improved, and trust had been rebuilt on a foundation far stronger than before. Lying in my bunk that night, I allowed myself a small, private smile. Emily Carter, the rookie, the observer, the strategist, had become a symbol. Not because I had sought recognition, but because I had endured, adapted, and shown the value of quiet strength. And for anyone reading this, anyone who has felt underestimated, mocked, or dismissed, don't let appearances define your potential. True strength is revealed in patience, resilience, and knowing when to show the world who you really are. Because when the moment comes and you finally step into your power, people notice. They always notice. It's quiet tonight. The barracks are dim, the sounds of boots and chatter fading into the distant hum of the base. I've been replaying everything in my mind. The first day I stepped onto this base, trembling, unsure, blushing under the soldiers' mocking stares. The harsh whispers, the snickers, the constant test of patience and endurance. It feels like a lifetime ago, yet every moment is vivid in memory. I think about the injury, the ankle sprain that felt like the universe reminding me that even strength has limits. At the time, it stung, not just physically, but emotionally. The soldiers whispered behind my back as I hobbled to the infirmary, sure I was broken. I felt humiliation, frustration, even anger. And yet, looking back, that moment was a gift. It taught me patience. It forced me to observe, to notice the subtle dynamics of the platoon, the true strengths and weaknesses that lay beneath bravado and mockery. It was a lesson I would carry far beyond this base. Then came the new platoon, the disguise, the deliberate mistakes, pretending to be clumsy, uncertain, slow, while quietly assessing every reaction, every gesture, every word. I felt the weight of their judgment, their assumptions pressing down on me. I felt the sting of being underestimated, and I loved it. Because beneath it all, I was learning. Every whisper, every snide remark, every act of impatience revealed more than a week of drills ever could. Observation became my weapon, and patience my shield. The field exercises, the tactical tests, the fog, the smoke, the chaos. It was all preparation. The moment of revelation, when I revealed the eagle tattoo on my shoulder, was more than dramatic flair. It was a statement. The soldiers had judged me based on appearances, assuming weakness where there was none. That tattoo wasn't just ink. It was experience, discipline, history, a symbol of a lineage I carried proudly. When their jaws dropped and the whispers stopped, I realized something powerful. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And sometimes it comes when you least expect it, when the quietest, least conspicuous person proves they're not what you assumed. The officers, the soldiers, even the one who mocked me the most, they all adjusted their perception. I watched them recalibrate in real time. It was fascinating. And yet, I didn't gloat. Control, I realized, is far more effective than prideful boasting. True strength doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists, and others notice it in their own time. By the time recognition was earned, the morale of the platoon had improved, discipline strengthened, and trust rebuilt. My purpose had been fulfilled. Lying here tonight, reflecting on the journey, I feel something I didn't expect at the start. Clarity. Strength isn't measured in how fast you run or how high you climb. It isn't measured by appearances, by mockery endured, or by the opinions of others. Strength is revealed in patience, in strategy, in resilience under pressure. It's in staying composed when everyone assumes you will falter, in observing, learning, and acting at the right moment. And most importantly, strength is in knowing your own worth when no one else does. I want to speak to anyone reading this who's been underestimated, mocked, or humiliated. You've felt the sting of others' judgment, the weight of being seen as less than capable. I know it hurts. It did for me. But those moments are opportunities, not obstacles. Observe. learn, endure, strategize, and when the time is right, show the world who you really are. You'll be surprised at how many people underestimated you, and equally surprised at how powerful you can feel when you finally step into your own strength. Emily Carter, the rookie, the observer, the strategist, is no longer just a name whispered with mockery on a base. She is a symbol, a reminder that appearances are deceiving, that resilience is invisible, and that true strength emerges not when it's noticed, but when it's needed. And in the quiet of this bunk, far from the noise and chaos of the day, I smile, because I've learned, endured, and proven something far greater than anyone could have guessed. And I know that whatever comes next, I am ready.